Hello, in this video I want to talk about tracing boards and about their origins and about how they can be read. So there's a lot of some fluid symbolism in there, but there's some very solid, very tangible symbolism as well. And I want to have a look at that, but also to have a look at the origins of them. So these tracing boards are relatively modern. Most of them, I think virtually all of them, would have come after the Grand United Lodge of England and the formalisation of many things Masonic or occult. So there's a lot of little symbols in there, but you can see how even through the computer age and modern art forms have still got them in, but it's actually a very ancient form of language. It's in a way about communicating, transmitting information. In the European world, with the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, some of the early figures are important ones, such as Johannes Reuchlin, a Kabbalist, and sort of Christianized and brought in aspects. But Albrecht Durer, super famous, super important artist and very important for geometry. He published quite a bit as well. Sir Thomas Tresham might not be as well known, but definitely an important occultist. He was the father of one of the members of the gunpowder plot, but we'll look at them a bit more later. Athanasius Kircher was a Jesuit, prolific author, illustrator, did a lot of important works as well, and he's one of the key people. But so to begin with, we'll focus on Albrecht Dürer. He's published some geometry, some really cool things on also very important artists, and the themes that flow through his art will be repeated. Hermetic symbols, for instance, Apollo and Diana, or Apollo and Artemis, sun and the moon god. So like one of his book plates here, you can even see the fleur-de-lis and the wheel and how they connect. All the important classical Christian symbolism, the Trinity, Adam and Eve, they'll all be covered by there. But within his works, as you go deeper, there's a lot of geometry, a lot of important geometry, and a lot of very key symbolism, which led to the modern tracing boards. One of the most famous works of his was Melancholia 1, and it's been covered a bit. I'll go over it a bit towards the end of the video, how it relates to fire, but really want to start with Jesuit scholar Athanasius Kircher, 1601 to 1680, and have a look at some of his artworks and how they flow through. So the twin pillars, that's a pretty common one, but again we're going to see the sun and the moon goddess and the Kundalini, or the coiled snakes of Hermes. Once again, Artemis, Apollo, Diana, Mercury, some other things in there as well, but just to showcase some of his work, and also very important in musical, and very important in early Egyptology as well, like a very prolific scholar. And for instance, one of his works he published on Egyptology, early Egyptology, and also with connections well to Isis and the Sistrum, which was shown in an earlier picture, Scala Musicala. The 72 points, or the 72 names of God as well, one of his works. And so at around about the same time, we have these proto-tracing boards, so the early development of them, and they'll all each have the same symbol, the all-seeing eye, the sun and the moon, columns, ancient symbolism, all very Hermetic, and it exploded really sort of with the beginnings of Rosicrucianism, the Enlightenment, and the early part of the Renaissance. But all of these led to this type of tracing board and this type of imagery that we have now. But so I want to have a very close look at this one and go through it piece by piece to break it apart and have a look at the very, at least in terms of geometry and math and astronomy, the very real and the very tangible elements in there, and how these are early form of science and some very key fundamental parts of science. For instance, I've circled the part of the board and enlarged it so we can see it clearer. Obvious reference to geometry with the compasses, but the 3, 4, 5 triangle, that's the first of what's called the Pythagorean triplets. Remember from school, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So this will be repeated in street plans and building plans later on, but it's also in a lot of art, in cathedrals, very blatant, and also in Masonic insignia. And with an overlay there of a Masonic board, and I've enlarged it again so you can see the same, one of the methods of proving Pythagorean theorem. There are lots and lots of ways to do it, but these are the most typical and used in the tracing board. So here are 2 tracing boards, and I've again highlighted, so we see how this 3, 4, 5, the Pythagorean triplet, Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, one of the key points, one of the basics, the elements of tracing boards in this occult. So back to the original, and that was the bottom right hand corner. Now we'll look at the bottom left hand corner. Again, I've circled it and highlighted it where we can see the man there is holding an open book with a hexagon, hexagram, and a pentagram. 6/5, very important geometric construction, one of those beautiful ratios in nature, beautiful ratios in math and geometry, and a very important work. For instance, Durer's, one of the methods for constructing a pentagram comes from his published pieces, and his diagram doesn't quite show it, but that construction is based on the Vesica Pisces. So to create that pentagon in the top, he's used the 2 interlocked circles, which in themselves create the hexagon. So we have or hexagram, pentagram / pentagon from the Vesica Pisces, and from the Vesica we also get the hexagon, or the six-sided polygon, the 6-sided shape. Once more with a comparison of tracing boards, a Templar and a Masonic board, and again I've enlarged it just to highlight it, how the 6-pointed star and the 5-pointed star, along with Pythagorean theorem, are one of the omnipresent. They're always there. They're always using these symbols in one form or another to pass on not just the geometry, but the importance of the number and importance of it, how it applies to arithmetic. And all these things should be done with compass and straight edge. That's one of the points of this occult hermetic knowledge, is that you should be able to construct the geometry yourself. So I'll now have a video showing how to do the hexagon and the pentagram.
Albrecht Durer method. And if we begin with a construction line, I'm going to draw a Vesica Pisces. Use red to highlight, keep it the same size. So we've okay, now I'm going to go to the point of intersection. The circle is the same size, compass set to the same size, and also want to create a construction line, right angles. You can again use that Vesica as a template. And we cut this down the middle. So with Vesica Pisces, a third circle to create the Trinity. This Trinity would also encode a hexagon. So here we see the 6 points of a hexagon. Now to create a pentagon from that, this is the Durer method. So first we need this point, highlight it, and what we're going to do is to draw a line through this point. So we've drawn our line and we find where it touches. Repeat on the opposite side. And so again, without changing the size of our compass, we put our point on either one of these. And I'll do the same on the other side. It probably won't match because I've drawn it quickly and not been super accurate, but well, it does, yeah. Okay, so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots, and to check, they all should be the same length as the compass. So now we've created a pentagon. Pentagon is a 5-sided polygon, so the pentagram is the star which is inside it. So first method of creating a hexagon and a pentagon. This is the Albrecht Durer method. An interesting point also is because the side length of the pentagon is equal to the side length of the hexagon. Well, it's already been worked out, I won't do the maths, but a little bit larger. We have 6 sides. How the pentagram encodes phi ratios. So, begin with the construction line. Draw a vesica. Third, to create what's called the trinity, which is, and I'm going to draw 2 more points to highlight the hex. Okay, 1 more construction line to create the 90-degree right angle. So we have 90 degrees. Reset our compass to the enclose the vesica. Because I was a little bit rough and quick, you can see it's a little bit out, but if you're drawing this yourself, take your time. And okay, so the original compass setting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have our pentagon. Now we're going to show how underneath this pentagon and the pentagram underneath that, some beautiful phi ratios, so we can make a phi ruler, create golden rectangles and all the other perfect proportions, so to speak. So now we have our pentagon. Inside we draw our pentagram. Okay, so there we have our pentagram, and now there are many phi ratios in there. Let's begin.
So with compass and straight edge, we've created a hexagon and a pentagon, or hexagram and pentagram. The shape is pentagon, hexagon. The star, 5-pointed, 6-pointed star is a pentagram and hexagram. Also in those earlier I've mentioned Pythagorean theorem 3, 4, 5, the 3, 4, 5 sided triangle being the first of the Pythagorean triplets. Goes back to ancient Egypt. They use a rope with knots tied in it. 3, 4, 5 created a 90-degree angle, and they were able to, each time the flood hit, people on the shores of the Nile could realign their land using these 90-degree 3, 4, 5 triangles. So it's very, very ancient. Also in Sumerian tablets as well. But through this a squared plus b squared, we can also decode the Masonic compass and square. The square, or the 45, 45, 90-degree set square from school, is about the square root of 2. And I'll put up a video now showing you how you can use Pythagorean theorem and some basic geometry to prove that.
Everyone probably would have seen these. In a standard drawing kit, you'll basically get a compass and these two set squares. Probably don't really think too much about them, and people who use them might not always get it, but what they are is that we'll trace them out. So we have both 90-degree triangles, and 90 degrees, 90 degrees, and this is our 45 degree set square. 45 plus 45 plus 90 is 180 degrees, and this is our 60, 30, 90, 3, 6, 9. And so, what's so special about them? Well, for one thing, this is an isosceles. This side, let me highlight it. That side is equal to that side because the angles are equal. It's an isosceles triangle, so we can say it's 1 to 1. Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The hypotenuse, the long edge opposite the right angle being c, so we know a and b, so it's 1 squared plus 1 squared equals c squared, so 2 equals c squared, therefore c equals square root of 2. In the previous episode, we did a 30, 60, 90 degree rectangle. Essentially it's a 1/2 of an equilateral triangle of 60, 60, 60. And we know that this length is 2 in proportion to the base being 1. So we have 1 by 2 triangle. Again, Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We know that c, the hypotenuse, is 2, and a is 1 squared plus the 1 plus b squared equals 4, therefore b squared is 4 minus 1, therefore b squared is 3, therefore b equals the square root of 3, which makes this purple line. The square root of 3. So it's 1/2 of an equilateral triangle. The proportions are 1.
So the Pythagorean theorem's a pretty nifty tool in geometry. Excellent tool to work out all sorts of areas and the length. Oh, it's just one of those essentials, and a bit of a shame that it's one of those sort of early school things that tends to be lost in later on. But it's one of the it goes back quite a bit of time in the Hermetic tradition, and it's one of the fundamentals of Masonry and these occult esoteric groups. And the phi proportions, which links to the pentagram, but we can phi doesn't exist only in the pentagram or pentagon. It also can be found in many other shapes and ratios, and we can again use Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, to construct and to prove the phi ratio.
Very special ratio, and one way to find it, phi equals square root of 5 plus 1 over 2, and if we plug that in, that works out to be 1.6180339889484, and it will carry on forever and ever. It's a lot like pi. Now, it's very easy to draw. We begin with a construction line. And then we're going to draw a vesica Pisces on that line to create a 90-degree right angle. From that we can create a 90-degree triangle very easily. So vesica Pisces, construction line. A good way to draw lines is to put your pencil or pen on that point, hold it there, put the ruler against it, and we get a good line that way. And now we've created a 90-degree angle, and we're going to use this as the frame to build a right angle triangle. And a very simple one, we can just going to separate it from the vesica. We're going to call, I've marked the horizontal. Now I'm going to do the same on the vertical line. Put my point. And so what we've done is we have 1 wide and 2 high. Simple as that. Okay, so just to highlight out 1, 2, 3 points. Now we can bring them together and create a right angle triangle. We know this triangle to be a right angle triangle and to be 1 by 2 either side of the right angle. And now we're going to, using Pythagorean theorem, first of all let's create the phi ratio. Now we have 1, 2, 3 lines, so let's call this A, this is B, and the long diagonal, the hypotenuse, is C. So what we're going to prove is that C plus A over B equals phi. Our compass is still set there. But now, what we need to do is go to that point and open it to the length of the hypotenuse, to the long diagonal. We arc this down where it crosses and extend we have A, which we know to be 1, B, we know to be 2, and so now we have A plus C, and this is equal to 5. Highly, highly accurate. So just to explain, by a fire ruler, now on this yellow section and this green section. So phi is green as 1 is yellow. So if this length is 1, this length is 1.618033988. And what's very cool, very neat about this is we can now also use Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, to prove that. And so a squared plus b squared equals c squared. A is 1. 1 squared plus b, 2. Therefore, c, therefore it would be c squared. So therefore 1 plus 4 equals 5. Therefore, so c squared equals 5. Therefore, c equals the square root of 5. Now we can say that if this is 1, if this is 2, therefore that is the square root of 5. C plus A over B equals 5. C is the square root of 5. A is 1 plus 1 over B, 2. 5 squared plus square root of 5 plus 1 over 2 equals 5. Well, we've already shown that here. So this is a, you can create a phi ruler, or what's called a golden rectangle, phi by 1. These are Hermetic triangles. This is the Euclid goes back over 2,000 years, and as far as the discoverers Javier Romanek and Mario Taboso were the first to come across it in 2013. I'm also going to include a link to 1 or 2 videos related to phi, this number, this ratio, and why is it so important in nature. You'll see it best represented through Fibonacci numbers, but geometrically, mathematically, things like the pentagram, shells, pine cones, sunflower flowers, the arrangement of leaves around branches. So much is relates back to phi, and that's why this particular number and this ratio are so important. Thank you.
So as we review, we see in the bottom left and bottom right hand corners we've covered the hexagon and the pentagon, or hexagram pentagram, Albrecht Durer, and how the vesica, using some very simple geometry, you can create these with compass and straight edge. Also how these are standards in tracing boards and the occult esoteric Hermeticism. It's right at the core of all of this now. Also Pythagorean theorem. Pythagoras was in the 5th century BC, but at least as far back as 2500 BC in both Egypt and Sumer and in India, people understood this Pythagorean theorem. 3, 4, 5 triangles is the first. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. And how this early tracing board, early symbolism, encoded knowledge that was very dangerous, potentially very dangerous at the time. People were still being burned at the stake for all sorts of things. But again, now we'll take a little bit further and examine this board a little bit closer and look at some of the other connecting symbols. Just beneath the hexagon and hexagram and pentagram, there's a cat, and there's a board in front of him. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's another Pythagorean symbol hidden in plain sight, and that's the tetractys or the tetrad. It's this triangular shape. Also, triangular numbers is another method for this, but the geometry of the tetractys appears from the hexagon. So just by extending the hexagon out, you can create the shape of the tetractys. Pythagoreans, when they made their oath in the Pythagorean number cults, number schools, the tetractys was one of the key points, as well as the pentagram. But a triangular number is, so 1 plus 2 is 3, then 3 plus 3 would be 6, and then 6 plus 4 would be 10. These are triangular numbers, and they also have a lot extra connections that are worth looking at, because there's other points on the board worth examining. Another very important part about the tetractys is that it's the tetragrammaton in Kabbalist tradition. That's the name of God. So there's very strong symbolism in there, and even in the tracing board, the triangle at the top with the all-seeing eye at the middle. It's another so hinting again at this. Back to the blank board, and on the right hand side in the middle, there's the angel now highlighted there and expanded out. He's holding what's called a magic square. It's very similar to Sudoku. All the numbers going up, down, or diagonally will all add up to 15. So I've just shown a quick example, but again, going down, in whatever row you're going, they'll all add up to 15. This is one of the points of the magic square. And this particular magic square adds up to 15, which is a direct connection back to the tetractys, tetragrammaton that I just mentioned. So now we can see a comparison between the last 2 points, the tetractys, tetragrammaton, and the magic square. The fourth triangular number, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10. That's the tetractys. A magic square of 15. So if we add one more layer to the tetractys, the fifth layer, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 equals 15. A direct connection here, but there's something also hiding underneath, and that's one of the magic things of the triangular numbers. So, we add the first and the second triangular number, 1 plus 3, and we get 4, or 2 squared. Okay, we add 3 plus 6, the third row, second and the third row we add them, and we get 9, or 3 squared. So any two neighbouring rows added together will give the square of the last row. So the fifth row added to the fourth is 25, the fifth, and 25 is 5 squared. So we see it's mathematics, geometry, but there will also be elements of astronomy, music, as well as all of the 7 liberal arts. But in these boards, they had to do it in this way, firstly because literacy wasn't as high as what we think, but people were actually much more literate in symbolism. And secondly, it had to go through symbolism because of, again, the church and the power structures at the time were very unfriendly towards this type of knowledge being spread, at least amongst the common people. You see very high-ranking popes and kings were very involved in it, but it was not to be done to be giving it to the servile classes. So once more we can compare the modern tracing boards to the older, and again the tetragrammaton or tetractys, which is the name of God in Kabbalist tradition, and well, there's many other applications, but the most obvious, most important one is through this Kabbalah, European mysticism, and again the number connection to multiple levels of knowledge, multiple levels of symbolism. That's part of the key of these tracing boards. They actually, in a picture tells 1,000 words, well, a tracing board tells 1,000,000, because they're loaded with no other way to put it, scientific information. This is the foundation of modern science. And once again, always multiple levels. So the magic square of 15, which connected to the tetractys, tetragrammaton, also has a second layer which will connect to the tracing boards. So the middle row going across is 3, 5 and 7. 3 plus 5 plus 7 equals 15. But on the beginning with the tracing board on the left, you'll see the stairway is divided into 3 steps, 5 steps, and 7 steps. The 3 steps is a very standard symbol. You'll see it in memorials and also other tracing boards, especially Freemason tracing boards, because of the 3 degrees of initiation to enter. The 5 steps and the 7 steps also have many links to tracing boards and to the Hermetic arts. The most obvious in the 5 steps being the 5 orders of architecture, Tuscan, Doric, Ionic, Corinthian and Roman composite, and the 7 steps to the 7 liberal arts. But again, multiple levels, multiple connections. This Renaissance period has its roots firmly in the ancient world, and when I mean ancient, I mean the ancients compared to the Greeks. Now, we say Romans and Greeks, ancient history. The Egyptians and Sumerians were around 2,000 years before the Greeks and the Romans and those Persians, etc. So we're talking about ancient history. So if we examine the 357 connection from the magic square from that proto-tracing board and the tracing board here on the left, 3, 5 and 7 steps. House of the Temple in Washington, headquarters of Scottish Rite Freemasonry, 33 columns, each 33 feet high, sphinxes, one ABC of all the symbols and all the important elements. It has 3, 5 and 7 steps. Comparison, we see this tracing board, and again how this is nicely labelled even for us. So we have the 5 orders of architecture: Tuscan, Doric, Ionic, Corinthian and composite. There are 5 orders in Roman, but the Greeks only had 3. But the 5 are hearing, seeing, touching, smelling and tasting respectively to the 5 orders. Probably one of the reasons that the Romans introduced these extra 2 orders, but that's another topic. Now, we're going to see the same thing on these tracing boards here. I just, since I already had the card sitting there, I thought it's worth a comparison. On the left-hand side on either one, you'll see there's a slight variation. So one has the Temple of Solomon in it, and the other one has the Lighthouse of Pharos, but that's can be copied in the George Washington National Masonic Memorial. But so we see the tracing board, Scottish Rite on the left, York Rite on the right-hand side, and if I've highlighted the area there, and so we see there are the 5 types of columns, the 5 orders of architecture, and just as we zoom in now, there a few of them, 2 of them are partially obscured by the flag, but we do see the but they're all in there. It's just one of these standards. Now, just a standard tracing board for degree will have 3 columns and the 3 orders, 3 Greek orders: Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian. Doric represents male; it's the column of strength. Ionic in the middle represents the woman, the column of wisdom, and Corinthian on the right-hand side represents the maiden or the virgin and the column of beauty. So between the strength of the male Doric column and the beauty of the Corinthian virgin column, we have the female column of wisdom. Between strength and beauty, wisdom. So the 3, 5, 7 in the magic square, the 3, 5 and 7 steps as a common symbol in the tracing boards. But have a look at 7. So again, these are older, the proto-tracing boards, the ones from the early Enlightenment, early Renaissance, before formal lodges that are more common today. But the 7 liberal arts as well, so astronomy, music, geometry, arithmetic, logic, rhetoric and grammar. The use of 7 is an ancient system of teaching, but also 7 is a constant through many myths and cults. For instance, 7 levels of initiation into the cults of Isis and Egyptian, but in the Sumerian Inanna or Ishtar, she had to, in her famous journey, she had to pass through 7 gates to reach the underworld. Again, another important a common theme that will come up are the Mithraic cults, which have similar symbols of the gods and goddesses, and also 7 levels of initiation. This 7 symbolism will also be in many structures. For instance, the Pool of the Black Star, which represents Venus, has 7 levels towards the middle, but also in other important parts in Winnipeg. And another example, Liverpool in Sydney, which is my very close to basically my home sort of town. It's on the southwest outskirts of Sydney, founded by the Freemason Lachlan Macquarie. The church was commissioned by Lachlan Macquarie, and the architect was a Freemason, Francis Greenway. But the statue by Robin Blau, which I've in a recent video I posted, how he's one of these artists that sort of tend to get these jobs. He also has this 7 levels approaching the pyramidal base of Lachlan Macquarie sculpture. And also at the church we have a staircase to nowhere, 7 steps. The church is nearly 200 years old, so clearly these timber steps are not original, but it's being carried on because this is one of those places in Sydney and that has basis in the occult, the esoteric Freemasons, and it's been continued on. It's one of those in plain sight things for those with eyes to see. Doing a comparison of tracing boards, now there are many basically they all have the same information in there, so even if they look very different they will have the same elements. For instance, the Earth sphere and the zodiac sphere. The zodiac sphere will have the signs of a zodiac around it, and the Earth will plainly be the Earth, or will have a tilt indicating the Earth's tilt of 23.5 degrees. The 2 columns, Boaz and Yakin, are also the Sun and the Moon columns. Now you'll even see directly above in other boards a Sun and a Moon. Both of these also have this serpentine river, this sort of twisting river, very reminiscent of the snake or the brazen serpent of Moses. Many other possible connections to it as well, but both of these also will have the 3, the 5 and the 7 steps, as I talked about, the 5 orders of architecture, the 7 liberal arts, the use of 3, 5 and 7 across many forms of symbolism. And staying sort of with the 7 liberal arts, again another tracing board. So we have the Sun and the Moon either side of the columns, all seeing eye in the middle, but the terrestrial sphere and the celestial sphere. So Sun, Earth, Moon and stars. It's one of the keys, astronomy being very important, and so even the simplest tracing board will have it. And as the modern tracing board as we have it, has they developed from these earlier proto boards of the early Renaissance and Enlightenment, have carried through the same message, the same basic elements. Sun and Moon, but also the 3 columns: strength, wisdom and beauty, male, female and the Virgin. Strength, wisdom is between strength and beauty is another way, but those 3 columns are also the Doric, Ionic and the Corinthian. Again, both these boards have the 2 spheres of the celestial and terrestrial, the Sun and the Moon, but also these 3 orders of the Greek orders of architecture, which have many connections, not just to the aesthetic and on the tracing boards, but quite literally in the temples of the time. But also the measurement system is not just about measuring buildings, it has many other applications. And for instance, the measurement of music, which is geometry frozen in time. And for instance, here we see a couple of pieces from Kircher, Egyptian symbolism, Egyptian musical elements, a whole bunch of ancient elements, but also on the left-hand side, Scala Musicala. He has the musical modes listed. Doric and Ionic I've highlighted because they are important measures of the ancient world. The Salamis stone is a proof of that, and it's not even no one seriously disputes Ionic and Doric measurements, but they also have a direct connection to time, to music, and to architecture. So it's the same scale, so they have multiple levels of knowledge. So we have the 7 liberal arts, and I began with arithmetic and geometry at the very beginning and used a few examples how to draw and hexagons and pentagons and Pythagorean theorem. But also expanded, so we see there's, especially in the tracing boards, obvious astronomical symbolism connections, but also musical connections in a very direct way back onto the architecture, which in itself is based on is geometric and arithmetic used to create wonderful proportions that connect very beautifully with measurable astronomical proportions and ratios. So as we began with this early tracing board and started peeling back some of the pieces, there's much more to it, and even just covering these small elements, it's getting up to 50 minutes, but just to review some of the key points is Pythagorean theorem and the very clear Masonic, but in maths and geometry it's an essential piece of the puzzle. So we see how it's one of the standards in tracing boards. One of contemplate Euclid's 47th proposition is another way to explain another name for Pythagorean theorem. 6s and 5s, the hexagram and the pentagram, again connected to these old masters of the Hermetic arts, but also an essential one of the standards in the esoteric, the initiation process. As you are initiate, this is the knowledge that one's initiated into and must come to understand. And also how these connect, not just with the symbolism and with the golden ratio and so much more, but the one complements the other. As we moved up in the Tetractys, again, Pythagorean Kabbalist aspect, so it's very mystical, but it's also very mathematical. Triangular numbers, so the names of God, but also the Pythagorean oath, but also in a pure math sense, which again will complement with other elements within the tracing board. For instance, the magic square, the Sudoku type of problem, where in all directions, up and down and diagonal, all the numbers will equal to 15. And how these themselves complement each other. For instance, the tetrad, the tetragrammaton, Tetractys is 10, but the magic square is 15. The next triangular number after 10 is 15, and that has other aspects to it. Again, tracing boards will have in one form or another. So the tetragrammaton is just with the 4 letters for the Kabbalist mystical name, the name of God as well, and that's complemented in the tracing boards with the magic square of 15, 3, 5, and 7. 3, 5, and 7 steps being again one of the standards in the tracing boards. But again, also multiple connections, so 3 steps of initiation, or the 3 Greek orders, 5 steps, the 5 senses and the 5 Roman orders of architecture, the 7 steps of levels of initiation into Mithras and Isis, as well as the 7 liberal arts, the ancient school of sciences, which our modern system has everything to thank for. It's entirely based on that. Again, the tracing boards, but also literally in the architecture of the occult. For instance, the headquarters of Scottish Rite Freemasonry in Washington, House of the Temple, 33 columns, 33 feet each. Again, the tracing boards, there's a symbolism behind Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian: strength, wisdom, and beauty, male, female, and the virgin. Between strength and beauty is wisdom. The 5 orders of architecture as well. It's they just any building that's designed by them are just that neoclassical revivalist period's just beautiful compared to brutalist architecture of today. Also, more connections to ancient systems of measurement, so not just in the column types, Doric and Ionic for instance, but also in the musical modes, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Ionic, Lacronian, and Aeolian, which I've not listed on the top, but I think that's on the faceplate. And all of this emerges from these the earlier tracing boards from, again, the Enlightenment and the Renaissance, when it was still very dangerous to talk about scientific things and to try and explain the world. So we've, from masters of the geometric arts and art as, you know, just as the aesthetic arts, Albrecht, Durer, Athanasius, Kircher, again, he's prolific publisher, illustrator, full of symbolism, and all of this is based in the Hermetic arts, the occult, the esoteric, and especially has seen by the 7 liberal arts, where Hermetic, as in Hermes, as in Mercury, the Kundalini or the caduceus, which you might recognise from the doctors, etc., but that's a Hermetic symbol. Hermes is the god of weights and measures, he's a god of science in the ancient world. And so even these, for instance, in my city now, there are dozens of very important references, but the Arthur Phillip fountain in the Royal Botanical Gardens is probably the nicest one to look at. And this is like a signpost. It's my whole city was built on this. On the foundations of it come from the occult, from Lachlan Macquarie and Mrs. Macquarie, and architects such as Edward Barnett and Edmund Blackett, practitioners of this craft, and they've done a wonderful thing. Now there are a few jokers on the internets that will carry on and talk about and really poo-poo this stuff and make it seem spooky and scary, so that people won't approach it and won't look at it as it should be understood. So I'll end the video for the moment. There will be other parts to it, but it was just a quick introduction to the amount of information that's in these older tracing boards and how they evolved into the esoteric or groups, initiation, which leads to occult knowledge, which is got a bad word, but it doesn't deserve it. And anyway, I hope you enjoyed Compass and Straight Edge. It's about all you need. Have a good one.